Welcome to Discussions in the Afterlife. I'm Jim.
I'm Colleen.
Today, we're going to discuss a remarkably difficult subject for these invisible people that we chat with.
Yes, over the years, we have gotten very little information on our use of graves. And we've actually been teased with comments. This one pops out, such as a man says, and this was in this house, right?
Correct.
Nick was buried in the night.
Which is an odd thing to say. Maybe that's why the fellow's pointing it out to his neighbor. Because funerals are generally daytime things. It's not something...
I've never gone to a nighttime funeral.
No, so it sounds like maybe that was a mishap. In a house called Hilbert that Colleen and I worked many years ago, I was talking about headstones, and a woman comes out with, "Buddy had me like a heart shape." So it sounds like her significant other named Buddy had her tombstone created in the shape of a heart.
Right, which isn't too uncommon.
Right, yeah, we've all seen that.
Mm-hmm.
And in that same building, I asked, what happens to the soldier who gets buried in a mass grave? And a man pipes up, "That's what happened to me." So, yeah, he knows maybe the last time he was here, he was buried in a mass grave. That doesn't seem to be bothering him. He's not bothered by it. Down in Panama, in Volcancito, I ask a very chatty house, is there anything the living can do to help the dead? And there's no response. Not one which is really odd. Not one person had a comment about my question. So I would assume that there's nothing that we can really do for the people in the afterlife.
Right.
It's just they're there to help us. We're not there to help them. And also in that house, a random, just out of the blue, man says to me, "You buried me, Jim." Well, it's got to be a very close relative. Of course, we've all gone to funerals. So I'm not sure which relative that was, but he's apparently in my house with me. So we don't have a lot of information on the subject. So Colleen put together a study this past week to ask the invisible people in this house about the subject of graves and headstones.
That's right. And the first question that I asked was, why do we bury people and use headstones? And a man said, up for honors, Colleen.
That's pretty good. I mean, we're going to forget people within the first generation or so.
Right. If we go to our mother a lot to ask her questions about our prior relatives. And if she weren't there, a headstone is helpful to find people. It honors them as well. And then another man with that same question, why do we bury people and use headstones? He says they've been protected for a long time.
And graveyards have been protected. People go in there and knock headstones over, kids, and people will go back and fix them, correct? Stand those headstones back up again. It's important for us living people.
That's right. And so then I repeated the question again. Why do we bury people and use headstones? And this man by the stove says, so you can find them, which is perfectly logical. That is why I would put a headstone on someone's grave. Then I went on to ask a different question. What if we put a building over a grave? And a man says, it's fine. And a different man upstairs says, I don't believe it doesn't matter. And by the glass door, a man says, everyone is fine. And in the kitchen, a man says, doesn't even matter.
And all four of those people who responded to you, they're all in unison telling us it's fine. And perhaps we have built a lot of our cities over top of graveyards. And I mean, they're still discovering in Philadelphia black graveyards in Center City that were paved over. And these people seem to think it's not a big deal.
That's right. And then the next question I asked was, what about mass graves? And by the stove, a woman says, that's what happened to me. And that she said exactly what that man in Hilbert said.
Right.
Earlier, you talked about that.
So she remembers that she was buried in a mass grave.
Right, so you're aware of where you're buried?
It seems that way.
And then I asked, why is it bad to pee on someone's grave?
That was my question. I've been in a bar trade my entire life, and that's just always been a thing. You know, the old guy sitting at the bar, and you know, you're angry at him, and you go up to him and say, I'm gonna pee on your grave when you go. And it's a joke, of course, but it's just...
Well, you're trying to be disrespectful when you say that.
Right.
And the answers came back that way.
Mm-hmm.
A man at the glass door said, it's a bad thing. And upstairs, a man who sounded really frustrated said, oh, good God.
Right. Yeah, so they, you know, at the end of the day, peeing on a grave is just... it's not wise. It's disrespectful, but it's still a funny joke though. but at the end of the day, to sum it all up, graves don't seem to be a big deal. The headstones are handy because we can go and look people up. We can find dates and names and track relatives that way. But otherwise, graves just...
They don't seem to be as important as it is to us. It's very important to the living to be respectful.
Right.
And it isn't good to be disrespectful. Obviously, if you pee on someone's grave, it's a bad thing.
Right.
Don't do that.
So there you have it. Graves are important for us humans, for the living people, not so much for the invisible people that have passed. Hey, thanks for watching. Subscribe to us. Comment. Send us a comment. I'll chat with anybody. Like us. Thumbs up. And
yeah,
help
and
us
if you
out.
want to read a little bit more, like in detail, there are summaries that are posted, and it's a lot of detail on our website. It's the same name, Discussions in the Afterlife, but just put a little dash between each word.
Yep, check it out. It will keep you busy for a while. There's a lot of information here. Thanks very much. We'll see you soon.
Thank you.